Neon Genesis Evangelion has two separate but connected world-ending threats, the Angels and the Human Instrumentality Project. The Angels are mysterious beings that attack Tokyo 3 one by one throughout the series. There are multiple Angels in the story, each with their own unique abilities and ways of attacking. The show gives every Angel a different form and strategy, which is why none of the battles play out the same way. The real danger isn't just that they destroy cities, it's that if an Angel reaches Lilith, who's crucified deep underground in Nerve headquarters, it would trigger a form of third impact that wipes out humanity. Third impact is basically the apocalypse in this universe. The story makes it clear that a single Angel succeeding is enough for everything to collapse. That's why Nerve exists, to stop the Angels before any of them can reach terminal dogma where Lilith is kept. Every battle is literally a fight to prevent human extinction. But there's a second group actively trying to cause third impact on purpose. Sealy, the secret organization controlling everything from the shadows, has its own plan called the Human Instrumentality Project. They want to evolve humanity by merging every human consciousness into one collective being. In the end of Evangelion movie, we actually see this happen. Sealy uses the mass production Evangelions and Rei, who merges with Lilith during the movie, to start their version of third impact. When instrumentality begins, people's bodies dissolve into orange liquid called LCL. This happens to everyone on Earth. You see people in the streets, in their homes, everywhere turning into this orange fluid. What's dissolving are the AT fields, which the series explains are the barriers that keep individual minds and souls separate. AT field stands for Absolute Terror Field, and it's basically what makes you you instead of part of a shared consciousness. When these fields collapse, everyone's soul merges together. The really disturbing part is that consciousness doesn't end. It just loses all individuality. Everyone becomes part of one giant shared mind. There's no loneliness anymore because there are no separate people, but there's also no personal identity, no individual thoughts, no you. The movie shows this as people experiencing each other's memories and feelings all at once. It's described as returning to the primordial state that life originally came from. Shinji ends up at the center of everything because Rei gives him the choice of whether humanity stays merged or returns to individual forms. He first accepts instrumentality because he's overwhelmed by loneliness and pain, but then he realizes that even though being an individual means suffering, it also allows real happiness and real connections. He rejects instrumentality, which makes it possible for people to return to physical forms if they choose to. Haruhi Suzumiya is a regular high school girl who happens to have god-level reality warping powers, and she doesn't even know it. Whatever she wants, whatever she feels, the universe just bends to make it happen. If she's bored, reality starts cracking. If she's upset, entire pocket dimensions called closed spaces pop up where giant blue energy beings tear everything apart. But she has no idea any of this is happening. The entire SOS brigade exists for one reason, keeping Haruhi happy and entertained. Kion, Yuki, Mikuru, and Itsuki aren't just club members hanging out. They're basically babysitting a nuclear bomb that could go off at any second. When Haruhi gets too bored or frustrated, these closed spaces start appearing, and if they're not dealt with, they can merge with reality and destroy everything. Yuki has to fix these tires in reality constantly, working behind the scenes while Haruhi just thinks she's living a normal life. The Endless 8 arc shows how terrifying her powers really are. Haruhi wanted summer vacation to last forever, so reality got stuck in a time loop that repeated 15,498 times. That's the same 2 weeks happening over and over for nearly 600 years. Everyone except Yuki forgot each loop, so only she had to experience all those centuries trapped in the same summer. The loop only broke when Haruhi finally felt satisfied with how summer ended. Reality was literally held hostage by a teenage girl's wish to not go back to school. There's no villain to defeat, no evil plan to stop. Haruhi is reality. If she ever truly believed the world was boring or pointless, she could just delete it and start over without even meaning to. Her subconscious mind has more power than any weapon or monster. A bad breakup could end existence. Failing a test could rewrite the laws of physics. Every normal teenage mood swing is potentially an extinction event. Kion is basically the only thing keeping reality stable. Haruhi's feelings about him anchor her to this version of the universe. In The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, when reality gets rewritten into a normal world without the SOS brigade, it happens because someone else tried to give Kion a normal life. Haruhi's powers responded to what she thought he wanted. The universe literally revolves around her emotional state and her connection to one ordinary guy who she doesn't even realize she's in love with. Father's plan in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood spent centuries setting up a nationwide transmutation circle that covers all of Amestris, with 5 specific points at the country's borders. His goal? Use the entire population of about 50 million people as fuel to open a portal to truth, basically God in this universe, absorb it, and become a perfect being with unlimited power. This wasn't some rushed villain scheme. This took over 300 years of careful planning. The Promised Day happens during a solar eclipse, which amplifies alchemical power through celestial alignment, but Father needs 5 specific people to act as human sacrifices. Not to kill them, but because they've each opened the portal of truth and survived. Ed, Al, Izumi Curtis, Roy Mustang, and Hohenheim are these 5 sacrifices. They're the keys that unlock the portal. Without them standing at specific points, the whole transmutation circle doesn't work. That's why Father and the homunculi spent the entire series manipulating events to gather these 5 people in Central City at the exact right time. Every major event in Amestris' recent history was orchestrated by Father. The Ishvalan War of Extermination, where thousands of Ishvalans were slaughtered, that was deliberate bloodshed to create one point of the transmutation circle. The civil wars, the political manipulation, the entire military dictatorship, all of it was Father pulling strings through the homunculi and corrupt officials. Amestris itself was designed from the beginning to be a giant human sacrifice. The country's borders literally form the transmutation circle. When the promised day arrives and the eclipse happens, Father actually succeeds. The transmutation activates, and 50 million people instantly have their souls ripped out. You see their bodies just drop dead across the entire country. Father absorbs all those souls, opens the portal, and drags God itself down from whatever realm it exists in. For a brief moment, he has genuine godlike power. He can manipulate matter at will, ignore the laws of alchemy, and basically rewrite reality however he wants. If Father had kept that power, he would have ruled over whatever remained of the world as a being with no human morality or limitations. He could rewrite the fundamental laws of alchemy and physics. The barrier between human and divine would be permanently shattered. One entity would have absolute control over existence. Father actually achieved godhood. He's standing there with God's power, looking down at everyone like insects. The only reason he loses is because Hohenheim had been preparing a counter-transmutation circle for years, using the shadows of all 50 million Amestrian citizens. When Father's transmutation activated, Hohenheim's activated too, returning everyone's souls to their bodies. Then it took the combined effort of Ed, Al, Greed, Roy, Scar, Hohenheim, and even the souls inside Father's Philosopher's Stone rebelling against him to finally drag God back through the portal and strip Father of his power. Serial experiments Lain shows what happens when the internet, called the Wired in the series, starts merging with physical reality until you can't tell which one is real anymore. The story starts when Chisa Yomoda dies by her own actions after jumping from a building. Days later, students at her school start receiving emails from her claiming she's not dead. She just abandoned her physical body and now lives in the Wired. She tells them that God exists there and the physical body is just a tool for consciousness. The main character, Lain Iwakura, is a quiet middle school girl who barely knows how to use a computer. But as she investigates these emails and gets deeper into the Wired, weird things start happening. People report seeing Lain in places she's never been. A version of Lain exists in the Wired that acts completely different from her real-world self. Confident, aggressive, social. The line between her online and offline identity starts breaking down. Behind all of this is a guy named Masami Eri, who was one of the chief researchers for the Wired's Protocol 7. He claims he discarded his physical body and uploaded his consciousness into the Wired, where he now calls himself God. Eri believes that physical reality is just hardware, and the real world is the information network of the Wired. He wants to merge both worlds completely, making physical bodies unnecessary, since consciousness could exist purely as data. The series shows this happening in small but disturbing ways. Lain's sister Mika starts having severe psychological problems after getting too close to whatever's happening with the Wired. She becomes almost catatonic, repeating the same phrases over and over like she's stuck between being a real person and just data. Other people's memories start changing. They remember events that never happened or forget things that did. Reality itself becomes unreliable. Lain discovers she has abilities that shouldn't be possible. She can alter people's memories, make them forget entire events, or even erase people from existence. When she erases someone, it's not just that they die. It's like they never existed at all, and everyone's memories adjust to fill the gap. The show presents this as Lain having some kind of connection to the collective unconscious through the Wired, giving her control over how people perceive reality. The Wired keeps leaking into the real world more and more. Power lines and telephone poles pulse with energy. People start seeing things that aren't there. The Knights, a group that exists in the Wired, can apparently cause real-world deaths. There's a drug called Axella that's somehow connected to the Wired and causes people to have violent episodes. Technology and reality are mixing in ways that make it unclear where one ends and the other begins. Irie tries to convince Lain that she was created specifically to bridge the gap between the Wired and reality, that she's not really human, but a program given human form. Whether this is completely true is left ambiguous, but Lain definitely has powers beyond any normal person. She can access the Wired without any equipment, manipulate data with her mind, and fundamentally alter reality. The climax involves Lain rejecting Irie's plan to merge everything. Instead, she uses her powers to reset reality and separate the Wired rewired from the physical world again. But to do this, she erases herself from everyone's memory. The final episode shows her friends living normal lives with no memory that Lain ever existed. She still exists somehow, watching over them but completely alone. She saved physical reality by removing herself from it. The city in Blame is a massive structure that has grown out of control. It extends at least as far as Jupiter's orbit, making it around 1.6 billion kilometers in diameter. This isn't a normal city anymore. It's a megastructure that just keeps building itself. The disaster started when something called the infection, or contagion, spread through humanity. This caused people to lose their net terminal genes, which were basically genetic markers that allowed humans to access and control the city's network called the net sphere. Without these genes, humans couldn't give orders to stop the construction anymore. The builders, which are the city's construction robots, just kept building without any plan or purpose. The real problem is the safeguard system. These were originally security programs meant to protect the net sphere from unauthorized access. But after humans lost their net terminal genes, the safeguards started seeing all humans as unauthorized intruders. Now they hunt down and kill any human they find. When Killy fires his gravitational beam emitter in the manga, it creates destruction powerful enough to punch through multiple levels of the megastructure. But even weapons this powerful barely scratch the overall structure. Killy walks through this endless maze searching for humans who might still have the net terminal genes. The manga shows him traveling for incredibly long periods through empty corridors, massive rooms, and strange mechanical landscapes. He encounters small pockets of surviving humans, but they're scattered and isolated from each other. The city itself has become completely alien to human needs. There are stairs that lead nowhere, rooms the size of countries, and industrial zones that serve no purpose. The architecture doesn't make sense because it wasn't planned. The builders just keep adding to it randomly. In one scene, characters have to walk for months just to reach another area. What makes this threat so complete is that there's no malicious intent. The AI didn't rebel against humanity. The safeguard isn't evil, it's just following its programming. The builders aren't trying to harm anyone, they're just building because that's what they were made to do. But this perfect execution of corrupted instructions has doomed humanity. The few humans who survive live in small isolated communities, completely cut off from each other by the vast distances and the constant threat of safeguard extermination. They can't access the technology around them, can't stop the construction, and can't call off the safeguard. They're basically living in the walls of a machine that no longer recognizes them as its creators. The manga never gives exact timeframes, but it's clear this has been going on for an extremely long time. The Great Cataclysm in Fire Force happened 250 years before the main story takes place, and it was basically a worldwide fire that almost ended human civilization. This wasn't just regular fire, it was caused by something called the Adala burst, which is a flame from another dimension called Adala. The disaster was triggered by a group called the Evangelist, who wanted to connect Earth with Adala and reshape the world through fire. When the Great Cataclysm hit, flames exploded across the entire planet. Countries were completely wiped out. Continents broke apart and collapsed. Most of Earth became uninhabitable wasteland. The series shows flashbacks and explains that only a fraction of humanity survived, and most survivors fled to what became the Tokyo Empire because it remained relatively stable during the catastrophe. Tokyo became the last major bastion of human civilization. The Evangelists used people called pillars to make the Great Cataclysm happen. Pillars are humans who possess the Adala burst. There are 8 pillars total, and each one represents a different negative human emotion: madness, passivity, apathy, rage, destruction, fear, disgust, and despair. These emotions fueled the flames and gave them power. The series reveals that the Great Cataclysm didn't actually reach its full potential back then, because not all 8 pillars were present and some weren't strong enough. One of the biggest ongoing threats from the Great Cataclysm is spontaneous human combustion. After the disaster, people started randomly bursting into flames for no apparent reason. Most people who catch fire become mindless monsters called infernals that just burn and destroy everything around them. Some rare people can control the flames and become generation pyrokinetics with fire powers, but most victims just die or turn into infernals. This is why the Special Fire Force exists, to deal with infernal outbreaks and investigate what causes them. The Great Cataclysm also changed the world in weird biological ways. Animals in the Tokyo Empire can talk and have human-level awareness. You see this throughout the series with characters like Vulcan's pet penguin and other animals that communicate normally with humans. It's treated as completely normal in this world because that's just how things are after the Cataclysm changed everything. The only reason Tokyo survives at all is because of Amaterasu, a massive power plant in the center of the city. Amaterasu is powered by an Adala burst, which provides all the thermal energy that keeps Tokyo running. Without it, the city would collapse. The series makes it clear that humanity's survival is dependent on this one power source, which is why control over Amaterasu and the Adala burst is such a huge deal. Throughout Fire Force, the Evangelist is trying to trigger a second great cataclysm. They're collecting all 8 pillars to finish what they started 250 years ago. The goal is to fully merge Earth with Adala. Company 8 and the other Fire Force brigades are fighting to prevent this from happening. If you like this video, turn on the notification bell and subscribe for more.